Thanks again for checking out the Coding Fanatic YouTube channel. Head on over to codingfanatic.com and join our mailing list for weekly updates on Android tutorials, career advice, and more. So once again, head on over to codingfanatic.com and thanks for your support. Welcome back. In my last session, I worked on some changes to the application, added some new functionality which lets the app do something with the input entered by the user. So before I was gonna go with a different setup than the edit text field, but I did some research and figured it out, so I decided to stick with that after all. But I could sit here and continue talking about it, or I can show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so the first thing I did was in the XML layout file for the search activity, I added an XML attribute IME options, and what this does is it configures it controls the enter key that you'll see on the keyboard in an Android application. So, like for instance, if I click here and you see no thanks. If I click any text field where I have to type something in, you see the keyboard pop up. This button right here, it changes depending on what your IME options are. So in this case, it's set to search. So when I click on it, it's going to search something in the search bar. So that's just a quick example. So I set mine to action done, which I will show you in a minute. And back in the activity, in the actual class for the search activity, I added an onEditor action and configured an onEditActionListener. And what that does is when I do something in the edit text field, I now have logic that manipulates the input entered by the user. So for now, if the edit text field, if you type in Dave and you hit that enter key in the keyboard, then it will add Chappelle to the list of addresses. But here is a better example. I'd rather show you than tell you. So here we go. Here's our application. You click on search list. This brings up the search activity. And as you can see, I have the list of addresses here. When I click in this field, if I type in DAVE, and you'll notice that there's a check mark here. So what this is what I was talking about before with your IME option. And action done, this is what creates this is why it's in a check mark. So when you set your IME option to action done, you get this check mark, and when you click on the check mark, it should do something. So in this case, when I click enter, you'll see Chappelle has been appended to the list. So this is simply a proof of concept for the time being, and I wanted to find a way to get the text, have the application confirm what's in that field, and then do something after. And if I add anything that contains Dave, you'll see that it doesn't add anything to the list. It's only if it says Dave, strictly Dave, and it has to be, it's case sensitive too, because here the string that's in this edit text field, when you invoke the get text and then toString methods, then you'll get it as a string object, and it has to be equal to this exact thing, which is Dave. And then it adds Chappelle to the display adapter, and then I set the adapter again. So it's updating the display adapter and then resetting the display adapter with the newly updated version. And that's only if the text Dave is found here in the edit text. So what this will do is later on, when I configure it for the addresses, if the zip code entered here, let me clear this out. If I enter a zip code that corresponds with something that's in the list, then the display adapter will be updated with those corresponding addresses, and then it'll be reset to that new display adapter. So this was pretty straightforward. It's not that different from setting up an on-click listener, so that anytime when you click on something, it does a specific action. It's really not that different. The only difference here is that I have to include an if statement and do something that looks for a specific action ID, which is what you get when you click on the IME option. Click on that enter key on the keyboard. It's very straightforward. So up next, I think I'm going to take a break from editing this, manipulating the edit text field. Now I want to update the way that the array adapter interacts with those addresses. So for the time being, I have it as a list of strings, but I'd rather use a list of objects in the array adapter. The reason for that is objects, when you invoke the toString method, then they display, you can configure how they're displayed. So either in a terminal, or in this case, the string that's displayed here, by overriding the toString method that they inherit from the object class, I can configure what they display. So rather than having and then additionally, I can use the different attributes of each object rather than strictly the text that I'm entering, trying to make sure that this text matches the something that's in the string that's being displayed. So by using objects, it gives me more flexibility on how I'm going to finish setting up this activity. But more on that later. For the time being, I'm able to interact with this edit text field, which is great. And now I can see the end of this application coming very soon. So thank you all again so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and hit the subscription button or bell so that you can get updates when I upload to YouTube. You can also go to codingfanatic.com and join the mailing list so you get regular updates when I post these videos, tutorials, career advice, and more. So once again, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you want to see the source code, I have a link to it in the description, as well as a link to the article, which goes into more technical detail on how I was able to configure the application this time around. So once again, this is your host, Richard Clark, signing out, and I will see you all on the next one. Peace.